Christians, when we remember all that God has done for us, we can extend His love and mercy to others. In today's lesson, we'll discuss how God desires that we would respond to His blessings in our lives. Israel's leaders had neglected their duties and led the people astray. Rather than protecting and instructing their citizens, they exploited and misled them. Micah used the image of cannibalism to describe how leaders fed off of those they were called to protect. Jerusalem's leaders were accused of increasing their power by using violence and oppression. Similarly, the prophets chose to seek after money rather than speak God's truth to the people. They prophesied according to how much money their words might bring them. Israel's leaders were not directed by God. Their actions were driven by greed and ambition. Micah's first series of judgments was followed by a hopeful look to a distant future when Israel would be restored. God would eventually redeem His exiled people once again. God would lift Israel up above the nations. And that brings us to our key verse for today, which reads, "Know, O people, the Lord has told you what is good, and this is what He requires of you, to do what is right, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God." Micah chapter 6, verse 8. Through the prophet Micah, God questions why Israel has turned against Him. Why have they turned to false gods? What did God do to deserve their indifference? Next, the Lord rehearses His blessings and how gracious He has been toward His people. He brought them out of Egypt. He redeemed them from slavery. He sent Moses, Aaron, and Miriam. They were not left without leaders, but were guided to the promised land. Next, the Lord brings up the incident with Balak, the king of Moab, and Balaam, the prophet. Balak feared the Israelites coming out of Egypt, so he hired Balaam to pronounce a curse on them. Quite the opposite happened, as the Lord caused a donkey to speak to Balaam and refused to go any farther. This opened Balaam's eyes to an angel of the Lord in the middle of the road, who told him not to follow through with the king's orders. After this, Balaam could do nothing but bless them. Each time he opened his mouth, he blessed God's people. The Lord here shows them that even when their enemies tried to curse them, God fulfilled His promise, and they were blessed instead. Micah establishes a courtroom setting in which the Lord is the accuser who charges Israel, the accused, with social and religious injustice. Judah attempts to respond to God's indictment by asking how they can approach God, who is so high and mighty, under the shadow of their own sin and transgressions. The people of Judah acknowledge the royal and lofty nature of God, and realize that the King of Kings is worthy to receive their prostrate worship and best sacrifices. Because of the greed of the religious and political leadership, they have not paid God the respect and honor He deserves. Judah continues an arrogant defense of their crimes by sarcastically asking what the Lord requires. The people know that sacrifices of rams are pleasing to the Lord, yet they exaggerate how many sacrifices they should give to God by asking if thousands of rams will do. This line of questioning and sarcasm continues with Judah even offering the fruit of my body or their firstborn as restitution for sin. None of what Judah has offered is what the Lord desires. God does not seek sacrifices, offerings, or rituals. The Lord wants the people to treat each other fairly and to walk according to His way. Obedience is better than sacrifice. So here's our lesson. The idea of walking humbly with God is juxtaposed with Judah's arrogance and refusal to lean on the Lord. Because the people have allowed their lust for money to interfere with their relationship with God and have chosen their own selfish gain, Micah warns that he wants them to submit to return to the mercy, justice, and the way of the Lord. By remembering what God has already done for us and who God is, we will be motivated to seek justice for others, not wealth and comfort for ourselves.